Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the I Can Do This All Day podcast. I'm Mark, the part-time Jedi, and that's Dan, our resident Avenger. And today, kids, somebody talked me in to rewatching their favorite movie from youth. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, or lady, or one or two people that watch this podcast, this will be a very telling podcast about somebody's youth and what has shaped them into adulthood, because today we review the 1984 cult classic, The Terminator. I'm sorry in advance if you decided to rewatch this movie before viewing this podcast. Dan, can you tell the people why we did this?
So the reason why is because that movie's awesome. Mark, you are in the minority in this. So just for a few different facts about The Terminator, it's widely regarded as the best Terminator movie, with the exception of Terminator 2. But at the same time,
if you have to say with the exception of, that makes your statement erroneous.
I'll give you something erroneous. Your commentary on this movie. So 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I was actually pretty shocked when I saw that. I mean, you have to admit too, like that's freaking bonkers.
I admit that's why I don't prescribe to Rotten Tomatoes at all. Bullshit.
It's not the end all be all for all movie knowledge, and nor do I think that just because it has a high score, it's a good movie. But that was just a shocking fact to me. But the reason why is we have gone into Marvel, we've gone into DC on this podcast, we've gone into Ghostbusters. So we've kind of covered a lot of the spectrum of like the geek, nerd culture, movie phenomenon. But something was missing, and that would be a little bit more sci-fi. We've done a little bit of sci-fi fantasy with Star Wars, but now we're into almost a genre-bending movie with the Terminator with sci-fi horror. And that is the reason why. And I thought everyone loved Terminator, so I figured this would just be some good conversation. Apparently
it'll be good conversation, but not everybody loved Terminator.
I genuinely think that you are in the minority on this one. I'm not gonna bash you. I will listen, and I'll be baffled because as we were prepping for this podcast, I texted Mark just like, "Hey, are we still on for tonight?" And he said, "I forgot how much." I can't remember what exactly he said. I can't believe how much this movie was like hot garbage or whatever it was. And so I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" So Mark's looking up the text right now. Mark, what did you say?
All I said was, I forgot how bad this movie is. And Dan's response was, "What? How dare you?" And I said, "You complain about Iron Man. This is hot garbage."
That's where that was. So I complain about Iron Man because I think it's held too high on the totem pole. I don't dislike Iron Man. I just think that other movies are better. So for this, in terms of Terminator, it is a solid freaking movie. But hey, before we get into us kind of debating back and forth, let's just talk about the movie, and we're going to go over a little bit of structure. But why don't you tell me, almost like your Terminator movie origin, as to when you first saw this movie?
I don't remember when I first saw this movie. I know I've watched it a few times. I can't remember the last time I watched it beginning to end, other than today. And much like movies in the early 90s and 80s, you caught it in some places and maybe you watched it and maybe you didn't. This wasn't a maybe I watched the whole thing kind of thing. If it was in the third act, I'd watch it when the good stuff happens, like the okay stuff happens. But I was introduced to the Terminator franchise in general with Terminator 2.
Okay.
Which is a far superior Terminator movie. And thusly, in my head, I'm like, Terminator movies are awesome because all I had was that Terminator. I've seen it a million times. It was on cable every 5 minutes. Like, I watched the shit out of that movie. Watched the shit out of it with Butnick and and Arnold on the chopper and all that. Like, it was a great movie. And I did pick up on all the fan service that they did in T2 from T1. A lot of the copied lines. Apparently the writers not super original, but there were also some shared characters. They brought back the shrink, they brought back um some of the motifs like the copying of the voice and things like, there were some cool things there, but the rest of it was not nearly as good. And that is where I'm at right now after having spent the hour and 45 to watch this movie and being like, God, this moves like a 70s movie. It's so slow.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. So I actually saw this when my best guess is probably about 7 years old. And it was on a VHS tape. And my uncles, we watched it over with my dad and my two uncles. We watched it, and I was like, this is a badass movie. And like, just action, like really cool. And I'm 7. Okay. So I'm 7 years old. We, of course, ended up doing the whole VHS bootleg copy of the other VHS tape, and it became a solid rotational movie for me. I remember specifically, I'd come home from school, heat up some ramen noodles, and watch Terminator as I played with my GI Joes and reenacted the Terminator scenes. Um, but yeah, so 7 years old, and it kind of just stuck with me throughout the rest of my life. And of course, I was a big fan of Terminator 2 as well too. But I am a big Terminator franchise fan. Yes, some of the movies are not so great, but I still watch them, and I have watched them repeatedly just because I like the story, I like the nostalgia, and a lot of them have some pretty good action. But going back to the original Terminator, and that's what a majority of this episode is about, just the original 1984 Terminator. Um, so childhood impressions, Mark. So how old were you when you saw the first one?
I saw the first one after I saw the second one, so I had to be at least like 11 or 12.
Okay. So I can totally understand as to why you might not be down with that, because Terminator 2 is just heart pounding, nonstop, almost nonstop action. Good acting, but I can see that in comparison to where you would think that, oh, this one not so great, because it ages, right? It's definitely an 80s movie, and
But I
you know,
love 80s movies. Like, I am a fervent defender of 80s movies.
yeah,
And
man.
there
But
are
this
movies
isn't.
that came out in 84 that are way tighter and better than this. I know it was made on a shoestring budget of $6.4 million, um, which is not not a lot of money. But compared to say Gremlins, which had an $11 million budget, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh wait, that had a $1.8 million budget and was way tighter than this movie.
No, it wasn't.
Mm,
No, it wasn't. You're
mm.
talking about campiness compared to sci-fi horror. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry. I'm gonna call it like I see it.
No, I'm just looking at so when I look at this movie, I just look at I was like, when I sat in my head and was like, what is this movie this bad? What else came out this year? What else? And the things that jumped out to me that came out the same year: Ghostbusters, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Splash, The Karate Kid, um, the other Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. 3 Schwarzenegger movies came out that year: Red Dawn and the second Conan movie.
Red
Um,
Sonja, you mean?
no, Red Dawn, the one where he played a cop in
Red Heat.
Red Heat. Okay, yeah.
Red Dawn is Patrick Swayze, R.I.P., where the Russians took over. That's where.
Oh, okay. Is that one? I thought that was something else. Either way, yeah, that one. And the second Conan came out. Um, Another low budget movie that came out that year. It's not as good as Terminator, but if you remember, the Toxic Avenger came out in 1984. And the funny thing is, the face scene in Terminator with the obvious prosthetic, weird, droopy plastic face reminded me of the Toxic Avenger. And they made the Toxic Avenger for 500,000, and you could tell because it was bad.
Trauma movies are all low budget, and they're known for its campiness. And fun fact: the guys from South Park did a trauma movie, Cannibal the Musical, and it's pretty funny. Pretty funny. So if you ever, it probably doesn't age that well, but feel free to check it out. It's just funny if you like the South Park guys. But so overall, like when you're a kid, 11 years old, 12-year old, I was 7 when I watched this movie. Did you understand like the severity of the situations? Were you like creeped out, scared at all? Were you like on the edge of your seat for any point of this?
No, no. Like even when the truck blew up and they show it burning and they still show its head moving and she's just casually walking past the truck. The moron from the future knew that fire wouldn't stop the damn Terminator. Like, he set them on fire. What the F, Kyle?
He threw a pipe bomb in there, man. There's a good chance that it could have.
He threw a pipe bomb in the back end of the truck. That wasn't like a whoosh tube that goes directly to the cab. We're not in the mail room. It was in the way back.
All right. So first of all, I got to stop you there because he didn't see the Terminator jump out of the cab and then fall on the ground. If he did, he probably would have known. But he was in the dumpster when that happened.
Which made no sense. You jump in the dumpster and the car keeps driving. The car's driving away. You're going to be okay, Kyle.
Dude, it's a freaking tanker and it's going to blow up. And it's not that far. It had like what, like a 10-second fuse? In some cases, you need to be like 100-some feet away for explosions.
Linda Hamilton was exposed, but Kyle was the one who had to stop, drop, and roll when he jumped out of the dumpster. Out of the dumpster, into the fire. Kyle's my big problem with this whole movie. He's basically a stalker.
So let's talk about that.
Kyle's just stalking out some tang.
Let's talk about that. So, all right. So you were a Terminator 2 fan. Wasn't scary to you or anything like that. So Terminator you just lumped it together with the idea of Terminator, correct?
The special effects in Terminator 2 were far superior. And I get it. Bigger budget, yada, yada, yada. But like, you couldn't even put the guy in menacing clothes to start. If the viewers have not figured out why my background is 80s sprinkles, it's because that's the shirt they put Arnold in to start the movie. 80s sprinkle. You know what he looks like? He looks like an extra from Born on the 4th of July. He looks like a sad war veteran, not an intimidating machine.
So, sorry, you didn't think he was an intimidating machine when he shoved his arm into a guy and then proceeded to murder his friends in his first scene?
I think that we all know that he should have killed Bill Paxton for that horrible hair and fake as hell tooth gap.
Oh man, I love that little cameo with him in it. Just so good.
I mean, you go from Alien to this. Come on, Bill Paxton.
No, he wasn't.
R.I.P.
He wasn't.
Was he in Aliens?
He was in Aliens. So this was after. So this is where him and Cameron hooked up.
After that, they put him in Aliens? What?
He thought
James Cameron sucks.
That guy with the blue mohawk has some skill.
It
Okay,
wasn't
do
a
you want to?
mohawk. It was like twisty spikes. It was
Oh,
the
it was. It
weirdest
was.
thing.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
It was like we all we got is some hair gel from the Warriors. You want that?
I mean, you don't remember the '80s and like the punk scene to where that's like what they looked like, and that's what they were, constantly um, portrayed as in movies. Like you saw, what's it called, the Police Academy.
Also came out in 1984. Much better movie.
No, but okay. Um,
Much better paced movie.
I
Also had
mean,
much better music, but we'll get there.
oh my gosh, this is crazy. All right, so let's go into time travel. All right, do you buy the whole time travel element in this movie? So I want to do a precursor to this because there has been a lot of debate about time theory, time travel. And this is one of those movies that's always in contention about it because there really is um, there's no way to really have free choice in this. Things are going to happen. I think they were actually refer to it as the Terminator paradox because no matter what you do, it's still going to continue to happen. The person who was sent back from the future is going to die. Then John Connor becomes born, and then he sends back his dad again to do the same exact thing. And it's one big circular loop of time. So, did you think about that at all? Did it bother you?
Yeah, I was annoyed that it was antithetical to every single time travel movie ever.
The two movies before this that may have had time travel?
Yeah, it's true. Back to the Future came out in 1985, didn't it?
I think there might have been one, maybe even one movie about time. I don't know. I don't know all of it. There might be some sci-fi movies out there, but I mean, I think you're picking on it because it's an older movie.
I'm picking on it because it completely ignores the butterfly effect.
Yeah, that's the which is perfectly fine. So you do not necessarily dig this type of time travel.
No, and Jules Verne would have disliked this kind of time travel as well.
I'm sure if Neil deGrasse Tyson is sitting around listening to this, he probably would think the same thing as well. But yeah, so I actually thought, this was obviously before I saw Back to the Future. I think Back to the Future did it the best out of like every single movie. That probably did it the best. I never watched Butterfly Effect. I was never an Ashton Kutcher fan, but I heard that's very good for the concept of time travel. But when it comes to Terminator, I just thought because that's the only one that I had seen, oh yeah, time travel, cool, that's awesome. But yeah,
So
I could see.
there was another time travel movie that did have a similar haphazard approach to time travel, and it was Bill and Ted. Because if you brought
That
people,
wasn't before Terminator, was it?
no, but it's another movie that had a haphazard look at time travel.
Yeah, but different movie, comedy compared to sci-fi horror. Once again, genre bending and completely different. So like I don't know, man. To say that Bill and Ted is equivalent to Terminator or even better or worse than Terminator is a little bit unfair to both movies because it's apples and oranges. Yeah, I remember like maybe seeing two other movies that had that, but I mean, I think they've kind of toyed around with that as well too in the other movies. But yeah, it's part of that Terminator paradox of like it doesn't matter what you do, things are going to happen regardless. And they even talk about that a little bit in the third movie, uh, T3. I can't remember what it was
Is that the
called.
one that they completely retconned because it was terrible?
I mean, they'd retcons a couple of them, so I mean,
They didn't retcon one or two.
I know, I'm just saying they retconned like every other one. So
Yeah,
everything
buddy.
after those two was basically retconned or something, or branched off of one and two and omitted the other ones in between. But all right, so let's talk about what really drives the story, and that is the characters. So the innocent waitress scooter driving Sarah Connor. What did you think of
Scooter
Linda Hamilton?
driving. Love the scooter driving portion. Linda Hamilton was like a B-level 80s actress when you put her in the part of anything else. But towards the end of this movie, you got the only version of Linda Hamilton that I think is worth a spit. And that's the angry, packing, just I'm ready to shoot things, Linda Hamilton.
Did you like her as a character? Did you feel bad for her or worry for her or anything like that?
I liked her more. I mean, I liked her character in Terminator 2, so I was already like in on Linda Hamilton. Um, I, I, I think she makes bad choices by sleeping with strange men from the future, and has a very strange roommate who keeps banging creepy Slider. But I mean, I didn't have a problem with Sarah Connor the character. I thought that you know I could see why she's a loony in Terminator 2.
So speaking of strange men, Kyle Reese, who was sent back in time to protect her. Yeah, so let's get that right off the table. So uh, Sarah Connor is a little bit of a dirty bird because she decided to just full on have sex with a guy that has not showered in probably years,
With
I
poor
guess.
virgin Kyle. With poor virgin Kyle. Yeah, no. Poor virgin Kyle. I was expecting the sex scene from Scary Movie. Like, what is going on? And I watched the end of this movie with my wife, and she commented on their weird, undoable, not body flexible hand holding during this. Like, what weird hand, like, how can you hold hands this way when you're on that? And it just didn't line up, man. It didn't line up. None of it lined up. None of it. And it was probably pretty stinky.
Yeah, that's I would say the stinky part is just the hand holding, dude. I mean, there's so many different ways that people could go ahead and do it. I'm not going to judge,
Oh, Karma
whatever.
Sutra Danny, I get it. I
I
do
don't.
want to add one thing though when it comes to the time travel. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm not going to talk about other movies like Time Bandits that came out before this. What I want to talk about is the lack of survivability of this highly electrically generated time travel. I know he had burns on his back, but I don't understand how the voltage of that wouldn't mess up like your heart or something like that. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense because there was no protecting him from it. He went in butt naked. Or does it dissolve your clothes? We never are clear on that, except that they just wanted to show Arnold's butt a lot.
No, he does. They do address that when he's being interrogated. He says nothing dead can go, so they have to go through naked. But the reason why the Terminator can go through is because he's covered by living tissue. But yeah, so and here's the thing, like that, the whole electric um, burns, we don't know if that happens because the time travel or if that was all just pre, you know, just his future war ravaged body. So Terminator, we're talking about the movie. What about Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator as a character?
No complaints.
No, no, not even any praises. Nothing.
It was good for him in the 80s because he didn't have to talk and he could just say a few cuss words that he had learned and he could move forward.
So Have you watched any like the documentaries or like featurettes?
This movie, I'm gonna say no.
Okay. So there's a few interviews a little bit later on. It may have been like the 10th anniversary of Terminator 2 or something, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's talking about how him and James Cameron were talking. So, fun fact for those who don't know, he was actually originally going for the role of Reese, Kyle Reese, and after having lunch with James Cameron, he was just talking about how the Terminator should act. Like he had the role of Reese, but he was talking about the Terminator. And so afterwards, him and Cameron were talking about how, you know, I don't think. Actually, Arnold may have said like, I don't think that Reese is going to be the part for me. And so then Cameron talked him into playing the Terminator. And so he did like these little nuances and mannerisms throughout the movie to be more like a machine. So like I don't know if you would pick this up yourself when you were watching it. When he gets to Los Angeles, 1984, his body as he's turning, like he moves his eyes first and then his head turns. So that's kind of like a little Arnold Schwarzenegger method to being like a machine because it's almost like a surveillance camera. But anyways, I think there's little things like that that should be appreciated because yeah, he was trying to make the best of his character, and those little things, that type of stuff matters.
I appreciate Arnold's robotic acting in all of his 80s movies.
Yeah, but this time he was actually trying to be a
He never
cybernetic
forgot how to
organism.
try, that's for sure.
Let me ask you about the horror aspect of the Terminator. Um, so him as a character, at any point did you think like, holy shit, this guy's a freaking badass, or like, oh my god, I would not want to mess with Terminators or have these in the future or anything like that?
You mean Michael Myers from the future? That that thing? The impressive thing about Michael Myers from the future is his encyclopedic knowledge of guns.
That was
The
a awesome
Terminator,
scene,
it was a really great scene. And then he iced the dude.
which
It's
was,
like
by the way, the dad from
it
Gremlins.
was. I'm like, this is why the dad from Gremlins is so fucked up. And then I saw him get shot. And I was like, nope, that's not him anymore. That must be his brother. And his brother is really upset because his twin brother got shot by the Terminator or Michael Myers from the future. The character was what the character was. I enjoy the glibness. It took an hour for me to get I'll be back or any good catchphrases. I think Kyle said, come with me if you want to live, which pissed me off because in Terminator 2, it's funny when Arnold says it, it's supposed to be a callback, but there's no way the Terminator heard that unless Kyle and John programmed him to say it later.
Right.
Like told him about that, which could have happened, I guess, right? But I mean,
That would
in
be a
general,
movie I would want to see. Like
what?
them capturing that Terminator and then
Yeah,
sending him back. That would be badass.
no, it absolutely would. It would be much better than this movie. Um, but again, like I was watching it and just watching the Terminator's consistent pursuit was basically what would happen if Michael Myers had a driver's license and didn't murder when he was a child? What if Michael Myers went through driver's ed and basic training? He survived fire. He survived getting shot in the eye. All of this was basically the Halloween movies, but sci-fi.
Yeah, but it was also done better because Michael Myers is such bullshit that he can survive all that stuff. And so for anyone who saw, what is the most recent one? Is it Halloween Kills? Whatever the most recent Halloween.
I don't know, man. I
Man,
gave up after 2.
it's it was entertaining, and Jamie Lee Curtis is still a very, very imposing screen presence, and I liked her acting in it. But oh my God, they turn Michael Myers into the Terminator, which nothing can stop the guy. Absolutely horrible. At least here in the Terminator, nothing can stop the guy because he's a cyborg and he's like a heavy duty badass. So it made sense. I have no problem with it. By saying he's like Michael Myers, like, no, Michael Myers sucks. Michael Myers wishes he could be the Terminator.
Michael Myers was the Terminator. The Halloween came first. The whole slow chase and relentless to catch came from Michael Myers.
It wasn't a slow, relentless chase. It was a fast-paced, relentless chase.
I don't know how fast it was.
I mean, the guy was okay. Dude, come on. You got to stop this. He chased after them. He ran after them while they were driving a car. He was in a high-speed chase with them.
He didn't run after him. He stopped and went to her
He ran.
Bear Mountain estate and killed her mama.
He ran after them. And then Kyle blew up a gas tank in one of the cars and singed his eyebrows and gave him the sweet haircut, which somehow turned into his haircut for all of his subsequent movies after that. But no, man. Like,
don't talk about Kyle and dying, because Kyle on death looked like Harvey Dent. I was like, is it Two-Face?
He looks weird.
What's going on here? Is this a Batman movie? I don't even know what's going on.
So speaking of like both Kyle and the Terminator, so there's one character that just thought all of this was bullshit, and that was Dr. Silberman, who reprised his role in quite a few Terminators, and also the character was reprised in Sarah Connor, the Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles as well too. But gosh, that is it. Earl Bowen is the actor, and he is just a phenomenal prick of a guy, and he is just, you know, his utter disregard, almost just obnoxiousness and self-righteousness, and like, you know, he yawns as he's like, psychiatrist, you know, it's like, yeah, asshole, yeah, you don't have to brag about how smart you are that you're a psychiatrist. But he was such a good character, and you know, it's one of those things. Him and Lance Henriksen, I really appreciate their back and forth with talking about, you know, like how crazy these guys are and everything. So what did you think about him as a character, the psychiatrist, Earl Bowen and Dr. Silberman?
I thought it was highly convenient that he dropped something and turned right and then walked out the door when the Terminator came in. It was definitely convenient for him. I thought he was self-serving, as he should be, you know, but I liked him in Terminator 2. Like, it was a fun character for me.
It's funny that you mentioned that though, because it wouldn't have mattered if he saw him.
No, not at all, because he didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah, and it's not like the Terminator would have cared who the hell he was. So it's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, like, why did they even have that as a point of contention? I guess like maybe they had like pictures or something or whatever. But yeah, very interesting. What about Lance Henriksen, who's been in every movie from the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. But Lance Henriksen is, I can't remember what his character's name was, but
he's a detective.
Detective Vukovich. Never heard the name, but yeah.
Hal Vukovich. Much like Jeff Vukovich, who sells nationwide insurance on every Cubs game I've ever watched on TV or listened to on the radio. He was in some pretty good movies. I mean, he was Bishop in Aliens. He was in Hard Target, the Van Damme, you know, high quality film. He was in The Quick and the Dead. I mean, he's definitely a pretty popular. I don't know how he survived though. Like, he got shot just like everybody else.
I don't think he survived.
Oh, it could be true. Bishop
I
survives in Alien. No, maybe not this one. Do you know he was in one of James Cameron's first movies, Piranha 2: The Spawning.
Never heard of the movie. I've never watched any other pre-Terminator James Cameron movies.
There weren't many.
Just like
I
two of
think
them,
this
right?
is like his third movie. Yeah. But
So,
the Piranha movies did get rebooted eventually, more recently, and
oh,
they
so
are
that
hilarious.
is related, sort of.
I mean,
Piranha 3D.
yeah.
Is it
It's
so? Is that Piranha 3D like the third Piranha movie?
no, they redid the first Piranha, and it's not really like I don't think it's directly related, but let me IMDb it really quick.
While we're talking about that too, so him and his lieutenant uh, Ed Traxler, played by Paul Winfield, they had a very interesting good cop, bad cop dynamic where Lance Henriksen's character is kind of just the smart ass type of cop, and Traxler's the more responsible one, and they're going after Sarah Connor to make sure that she's safe, and it's not until she calls them that, oh, Sarah Connor, okay, we better protect you because two other Sarah Connors got executed tonight. So where are you at? And so that they send a car after her, which never ends up showing up, and that's kind of unfortunate for the LAPD. But you know who did show up? 1L19 after Arnold gets his eyebrows singed. 1L19 radios it in, and then Arnold just throws his bitch ass onto the concrete and steals his car. That's if I
You mean
ever,
the tiniest policeman ever?
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that he was like in another one of Cameron's movies. Like he just keeps on showing up, but I could be wrong on that. But what about the other? We talked about Bill Paxton, so the other rando characters. What about the tech noir '80s club goers? What did?
Well, let's not talk about the 80s club goers. Let's talk about the lamest ass, weirdest bar setup you ever did see. That was the brightest bar I've ever seen.
Did you
Ever.
go to the bars in the '80s?
Dude, bars are bars are bars. I've been to bars that have been open well since the 80s, and bars are more lighted at closing time than they were in the middle of that. And to have a payphone on a concrete column makes no sense because it's a
Why?
load bearing column. You're not going to run wire through it.
Almost all payphones I've ever seen are up against like a concrete column.
They're in a phone booth so you can hear yourself over the club.
I don't know, man. I think you're nitpicking on this
The
stuff.
the one There's one thing I do want to back up and mention. The one high point of Kyle for me, at least. And I wrote this in my notes and I totally missed what we were talking about. So I'm sorry to backtrack on you. But he did prepare for all the running that he was going to do because he stole an old lady trench coat and a very fresh pair of Air Force One high tops.
Those Nikes were pretty damn sweet. I think everyone wanted them
There was
after
some
that.
there was some dark blue with the white bottom and like a silver check with the silver strap. I was on those Air Force Ones. Nelly sang a song about them.
So they weren't technically Air Force Ones, but
They absolutely were Air Force Ones.
are you sure? Don't I might call your bullshit on this one. I don't think they were. I think Air Force Ones were like 1988 ish.
They were Nike Vandal highs, which look very similar to Air Force Ones, except the Vandals are not leather. They're made of
Rubber?
canvas.
Canvas. Oh yeah, they were canvas shoes, yeah.
But they have released the Nike Vandal High Terminators since. Ask me how much they go for in size 11 on StockX right now.
How much do they go for in size 11 on StockX right now?
$11,704.
Holy shit.
If you're a
That's
size
awesome.
10, they're only $2,400. If you go to eBay for a size 6 because you have little tiny baby feet, they're $1,200. But
My God.
yep, they did come up. And apparently Kanye wore them recently, which makes me hate them. But yeah, no, that is a re-release shoe, much like the Back to the Future shoes, but not nearly as expensive as a pair of those. But yeah, just so you know, and you know what, I will make a commitment to you from now until the end of the time I check sneaker releases. If I see the Nike Vandal highs coming out in this colorway or a similar colorway, I'll make sure to alert you so you can get in the queue on launch day.
Thing.
If anybody wants to advertise on this podcast, I can commit that the first couple $100 we receive in ad volume will go to get Danny a nice pair of sneakers that he could be proud of.
I have some cool. I'm an Adidas guy, so Adidas holler at your boy. I I love myself some Adidas. So I've
My
got.
son just is rocking some Hulk Stan Smiths that are
Oh,
pretty
very
sweet.
cool.
They
Nice.
say it ain't easy being green on the back. I figured you'd like
Oh,
those.
that's cool. Very cool. For all those who can't see our shoes, I actually have a pair of Captain America, almost like Converse style shoes, and they got the little shield on them. It's pretty sweet. But anyways, we digress. Today's full of randomness on the Terminator episode, but let's talk a little bit about the music. So you alluded to it earlier that you weren't a fan of the music, huh?
Ew. Ew to the music. Like why? Why was it so bad?
Why? What was bad about it to you?
It sounded like something that I could have put together with like a Tycho Hot Licks guitar. Do you remember the synth guitar that Tycho put out that just had buttons on it?
Let me
Oh,
give you a
toys
nice little
again.
reminder, Mark. When
Oh.
I was younger, I didn't have that many toys.
Oh man. It seemed like somebody got a keyboard for their birthday and was really excited about it, but really didn't understand much about music. And it wasn't like a full keyboard. It was like it had 2 octaves on it and it was like they were trying something strange.
Dude,
And here, let me give you the reason why. Again, why this music was like, what the F is this? Because you go to Terminator 2 and you get da-dum, dum, da-dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum, which was not present once in this movie until the very end.
what?
I
It
missed it.
plays in the opening credits.
Oh, then why did they use it more?
They played very similar themes throughout it because oh man, I have a feeling that like you just did not watch this. You checked out when you heard like a synth sound, and then you're just like, "Fuck this movie, I'm out of here."
The music didn't get me. And I
So
tried. I was like, maybe it'll get better. Maybe they'll do something cool with the synth. Maybe they'll do. I am not anti-guitarist. I'm not anti-synth. I just didn't think that if you compare to how they used it in Terminator 2, it was just is like they hired a professional musician for the second movie because they had money to, I guess.
it's so interesting that you say that though, because like, yeah, so it's 80s synth all across the board, and that they didn't have a lot of money. Um, they went with Brad Fidel, who did uh, I believe a majority of the music. Don't know who he is. Brad Fidel, if you're listening, hey, come be a guest on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. But
No, Brad Fidel, you got better with time. You got so much better with time because if we look at your IMDb, you went, from Tucker's Witch and whatever, Terminator, to Fright Night, which was better. Then you went to Terminator 2. Then you went
Wait,
to
he did Terminator 2?
he did Terminator 2. Music Mixer uncredited. Oh, he was uncredited for Terminator 2.
It's probably because it's just based off of his score from the first one.
Yeah. Oh, I love that movie.
So yeah, I like the music, and it's actually regarded as like amongst the movie critic circle, I guess you could say. I mean, it's really fitting because you have this 80s synth wave type of music sound, and it's like the music of the future, if you will. You've got freaking machines coming after you, and so everything is just machine type of music. And I might be even stealing some of the thunder from James Cameron when he was talking about this on like the 10th year anniversary of Terminator 2 or whatever. um yeah, it was just I thought it was like really well done, and there was songs during the chase where it was like panic, and yeah. All right, so let's talk about the chase. What are your overall thoughts on the Terminator chasing and hunting Sarah and Kyle Reese?
I didn't mind it. I thought the Terminator got places fast in some cases and got places really slow in some. I don't know how he beat a cop to the bar. No idea. Like, I don't know how he beat Motorola, but he did. Um, and then like it took him forever to get from the cabin to the motel.
Oh, it was like, I don't know how far away Big Bear is from LA, but I'm assuming it's pretty far away.
But
So
it
that,
didn't take him that long to get to Big Bear.
I don't know.
Big Bear
I'm
to
like,
LA is an hour and 50 minutes.
okay, well, 2
So
hours.
the love scene was like 13 seconds there, Cal.
Oh, it was the 80s. That was actually pretty short for an 80s movie. So James Cameron was going for more of a dramatic effect on that one. Did you think that it was feasible for the Terminator to even find them? Like, how do you find someone in LA?
Well, she gave him the fucking address. She
Yeah,
gave him the phone number. All he did was look in the phone book and then look at public records.
yeah.
You know what? If the Terminator came back now, it'd be really quick. They'd be on the internet. You'd have a little Apple tag. You'd be fucked.
It's so interesting though. Like, why didn't Reese just flat out tell her? Or maybe he did. He did say that they're
What I want to know is how
systematic.
the Terminator guilted just like the mom. Like, how did the Terminator? Because every mom has a different like guilt trip voice or whatever, right? Like they all have their own move. At least in my experience, I have no idea how dude like, oh, I'm your mother. And just like he doesn't know what mothers are. He's a robot.
He's a cybernetic organism,
Mm.
metal endoskeleton covered by living tissue.
Not much then. He had to take an X-Acto knife to make his eye work.
Yeah, it's self-sustaining.
No, it wasn't. He smelled like a corpse. He was dying. He had flies all over him. That's another incongruency. How is this flesh dying, but in Terminator 2, it just healed? It was cool. They used some pliers and put some neosporin on that motherfucker, and he was fine.
Well, I mean, he didn't suture his eye up. He just stabbed his eye out and then let it sit in the sink. So I don't know if he even drained the water. So that could be one of the reasons as to why that's the case. So
Yeah, because eyeball goo is always smelly.
I don't know. But
How did you feel about the chase? Was this like your ultimate chase? Like,
dude, I thought it was so cool because number one, the shootout at the bar was awesome. So awesome. You get to see a variety of guns, but Reese made, to me, as a 7-year-old child, Reese made shotguns so cool. Like, I wanted to have a shotgun just after that, because when you can mow down a Terminator, then that's pretty badass.
Reese was a terrible influence on children. He showed you how to saw off a shotgun and tie it to your arm so it would hang in your fucking your trench coat, and he showed you the basic household ingredients to make pipe bombs.
Which I was always trying to put that together, as to like, so
So
mothballs.
were some young kids in Colorado when I was in high school.
Yeah, but anyways, so I thought that was really cool in the sense that, like, okay, so yeah, he is crafty, and he only has so many resources.
He wasn't crafty. That's how Marty McFly found his dad.
What are
Or
you
how he found the
talking about?
doc. He went to the phone book in Back to the Future.
Crafty in the
Everybody went to
sense,
the phone book. It
dude,
was
I'm
the
not talking
phone
about a
book.
phone book. Get off the phone book. It's not, that has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about that he is crafting a shotgun in
Oh, you're
broad
talking about
daylight to make
crafting.
sure that he can take out the Terminator, and or just protect the person that he's meant to go back and protect.
Do you think that this movie was an influence for all futuristic games where you craft weapons like Fallout?
I don't know. I never see, Mark, in my adulthood, I also haven't played games like Fallout. So just like
Fallout came out prior to your adulthood, Daniel.
I've been an adult for what, 27 years? I don't know. But yeah. No, but in terms of like weapons, I don't know. Maybe I've never played the game, but I just thought it was really cool in terms of like, okay, so this guy plans out his defense. He has to find Sarah Connor. When he does find her, she thinks he's a fucking creep, and he's the one that's killed everyone. And so he knows to, all right, I got to walk past this bar and then sneak in somehow to not freak her out.
So hang on. He was a creep. He's been staring at a picture of her for way too long.
Yeah.
He's absolutely a creep.
But
Also, one other thing that led up to this scene in the bar that made no sense to me. How the fuck is 911 busy?
she didn't call 911. She called
The
like the,
emergency number.
did she call the emergency number? I thought she
Yeah.
was, oh,
It
okay.
says LAPD emergency line. Sorry, all lines are busy. Please call back. No
I
wonder
just
there were so many
assumed,
fucking murders in the Hollywood Hills
no,
in the
yeah, no one gave a
70s and 80s.
no one gave a shit for the like I said, LAPD did not look good in this
No.
movie. So, but one of the things that like I just thought was really cool is when, if you didn't really know who was the good guy, who was the bad guy, because and like Terminator 2, you kind of know who the good guy and the bad guy is. In this one, it's not 100% certain as to who's good, who's bad, but you're pretty sure that Arnold is pretty fucking menacing, and he's the one that fucking offs people.
Well, there's a
So
line. There's a line that creates a line of demarcation. It's come with me if you want to live.
yeah, but I'm saying like before, like those two characters are like, she thinks Reese is the stalker and the killer. She has no idea about Arnold. And then you see this little scene right up here. That's when Sarah Connor sees Arnold point blank and just ready to unload with his 45 laser sighting, whatever. I can't remember the name of the
Was this before or after he shot Slider and her celery and peanut butter eating roommate with the same gun?
That was after.
Okay.
Yeah. Such a cool gun. And apparently that gun like did not really exist, because they had to use like some type of battery rig for it to work, because the laser sighting needed to be powered from an external source, and so it was like rigged up in Arnold's jacket. But that was kind of disappointing.
If I was Sarah Connor, I wouldn't feel very safe or out of the woods yet, because he was very rapery in the car, holding her down and yelling directions at her. Like, homeboy, that is not how it's going to happen for you, dude. Turns out it is, but that made no sense to me.
So,
Like, it was totally creepy. Stay there and don't move. There's a killer after you. You should trust me. I've been staring at you oddly across the bar all night. That's how you build trust with people, staring at them across the bar.
yeah, I mean, it's a shitty situation. He's from the fucking future, and he has to go back and protect her. And there's a Terminator after him. I mean, what do you want him to? You want him to like take her out to dinner and just be like, "Hey, let me tell you what's going on." You know. So to go back,
there's
to
no
your
time for
point,
tacos, Dan. People are gonna die.
To go back to your point in regards to when you were talking about like how creepy he is, yeah, it is fucking creepy. It's really weird. And the weird thing about it is, and they make fun of this on the TV show Glow. If you've ever seen it on Netflix, it's about women's wrestling. But he's enabled because John Connor gives him the photo. So once again, the whole Terminator paradox, it's like, it's a weird thing. Like, I have to send my dad back to make sure that I live, and I need him to go back and bone my mom. And this is just the way that I have to do it. Here's a Polaroid. Here you go, kid. Whatever, do whatever. Hopefully, you fall in love with her, and then when I send you back, that this sets things rolling. It's weird. It's weird.
Here's the cleanest woman you will ever see in your adult life. You should look, like clean in that they just, for the future in this movie, it was like, let's get you a little greasy and then just pump in as much fog as we possibly can. Because fog equals future.
There wasn't that much fog.
In the scene where they burn the Polaroid, it was like a bar in the 80s full of smoke.
Because the whole fucking bunker was on fire. It's not fog. It's not like it's 60 degrees out and all of a sudden the precipitation started.
Dan, how much of the bunker can be on fire? This was pre the Terminator showing up. This is just them knocking on the door and coming on in. It's not the Great Springfield Tire Fire, Dan.
They had fires going inside the bunker.
It was super fun. It was like all of the fog machines. It's like they spent like 0.4 million of their $6.4 million budget on fog juice for this movie.
I don't know. I guess you're picking up on things that are just minimal to the story. So I don't know. That's why I'm like,
the cinematography really killed me through almost this entire movie.
So what's like give me like an example of what?
The framing was terrible. Like anytime they tried to show anything that was like an actual anything, the end was the best shot scenes. When she's coming up to the gas station, when she's driving, not when she's driving away. That was really kind of like they mailed that in. But like the shot at the end was probably the best cinematography of the movie. And I don't know if they had to put that in reshoots or shoot it later or what, but it was definitely different than they shot the rest of the movie.
Okay. All right. So that's a good one. What are some other bad ones?
They never really, I don't know. I felt like the panning and the moving and all that was not really what I was that good. And then the going through the factory, they never really centered anybody. They put them on one side or the other side of the frame. It was definitely, there's just some oddities to me.
Okay. All right. I'll have to go back and take a look at the factory scene because I never really thought about it because throughout the entire movie there was like this degree of frantic action that I guess I just never really thought about, actors or characters being centered on the screen or anything like that. So I thought maybe that might have been
intentional. It comes from watching too many movies on my part, maybe too much Kubrick, maybe Kubrick was big in those days and he would center everything and just, I like seeing where things are in the frame. It's one of the weird things I watch.
I completely get it, but I would think that Cameron's not so inept that maybe there was
but it's his third movie. He actually has an excuse for this bad James Cameron movie. Whereas At the end of this year, when Avatar 2 comes out, there are no excuses.
I really think that he just it is like a frantic pace throughout the movie, that it's just like there's never really, besides the hotel, there's they're always moving. There's no real moment of like, okay, we
I
got a
did
break.
do some reading on this movie when I was looking at the budget and just kind of the way it was shot. And Cameron did refer to it as like guerrilla filmmaking, meaning he didn't have the budget to pay for some of the locations he wanted. So he
Right.
would just show up and run away.
Yeah.
And that's that you could tell some of the frantic scenes that are shot.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I just thought you could have, or he could have just been like, that was all by design. But yeah, I guess if he had he was afraid of getting arrested by it, then yeah, that kind of makes sense. I think like that though, going back to the chase of everything, Kyle and Sarah are just like constantly going out, and they can't catch a break. They get arrested. Then they have to run from the police station because Arnold's in all his glory says, "I'll be back," and plows through the fucking front door and just executes like almost everyone at the police station. So they're always on the run, and I kind of like that in the movie. Is that with, like I said, with the exception of the hotel, but even then they are still literally under the gun, and he like charges into the room and they narrowly escape and drive off. But the Terminator's always right there. And it's not like Michael Myers, because he goes in there fucking strapped, ready to roll, and unloads bullets on them.
Did you notice that they couldn't get Arnold to not blink with the gunshots? Like, you'd think if it's a Terminator, the machine isn't going to blink forcibly on gunshots. But
He'd actually trained to
I
load,
mean,
reload, fire the
well, he was in
weapons,
the army.
and I don't know. Well, I don't know. Was he? Sure.
Yeah, no, Arnold was a tank driver in the army. That's where he
Well,
first started training. You
but
gotta learn some more Arnold.
he did extensive firearm training for that and tried not to blink. So, I mean, what can you do when you're firing a automatic weapon? So, I don't know. Like, I get it. I totally get it. But yeah, there's a lot of inconsistencies, and it gets worse.
It
Those
does.
inconsistencies get worse as the movies go on. But
This wasn't a time when they could CGI in the bullets like they should do on every movie now,
yeah,
especially
it's
after
true.
Rust.
Yeah, for a safety factor for sure. And a lot of movies now are more like that. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen like the fan made John Wick recreations. They're really fucking good,
And
and
they're
they're
just
not
plastic
firing.
guns, yeah.
Yeah, they're not firing anything. It's all CGI after the fact. It's all. It's
Can
cool.
I ask you another toy question that you may hate me for?
Before you go on, Mark, just for the record, I did not have many toys when I was younger. But go ahead.
Did you have the because you were such a Terminator fan, the water guns that looked like actual guns?
No,
I figured
no.
with your Terminator love, maybe somebody got you some fake straps.
I did have like some of the cap guns that that looked semi-real. Like I had like a little black mini Uzi, which was really cool. But yeah, I was very creative when I was younger, and so I would like craft weapons out of like newspaper and Christmas gift wrap, stuff like that. Like yeah, so.
Did you do a lot of terminating as a child?
No, I actually did more killing aliens and predators when I was young. For the shotgun aspect of it, I would use Christmas wrap, like tubes, and I had the sounds down and everything. Like Mark, I could blow your mind if I went over my childhood gun sounds that I would recreate to make sure that they were
You're like
almost as
the
accurate as the movies.
you're like the Michael Winslow of childhood gun
Yes,
noises.
exactly. It's so funny too because like Actually, I was doing this tonight with my kids. Like we were playing with some of their toys, and by the way, my kids have way more toys than I ever did. So if they ever see this when they get older, you guys
I
are
feel
so
bad for
lucky.
how much you've reminded them of that over the years.
um, but we were playing with like their little you know army corp guys and all that stuff, and they have like the little gun noises, and so I would make my little gun noises like machine guns and shotguns and everything. And there's like a small part of me, a very, very small part of me. It's like, hey, buddy, you got to work on your gun sounds. They got to sound more realistic. Like, come on. And it's fun. It's 100% true. So, like, I didn't do that tonight per se, but I used to do that with my oldest when he was younger because he would have these piss poor gun noises. And I would just be like, come on, man. At
Man,
your age, I was going full auto right now. But my youngest, I restrained myself from saying
he's
that
just
to
at
my
pew pew age, Dan. He's just at pew pew.
I had to restrain myself from correcting him and just be like, quit making that noise. Do it this way.
You stop making those shitty gun noises. You're gonna embarrass me in front of your toys. Don't make me go get the Christmas wrapper.
Oh my god, yeah. And so it's funny though, but yeah, I could be the Michael Winslow of gun noises, but yeah. Overall,
I think that our wide listening audience would be very disappointed if you did not give some level of demonstration.
maybe
Most appreciative if it included hand gestures of some sort
I
for those watching on
automatically
YouTube.
it's like it automatically goes into a hand gesture, especially if I'm doing a shotgun. But I will save that for another episode.
We need to be right. We need to be rated E for everyone.
Yeah. Actually, no, I totally do not. Like our podcast is not really good for kids. I think we tried to go clean or inadvertently go clean for one episode, and then we just started dropping S bombs
It's
and F
it,
bombs.
it's probably good for our kids. Like my son apparently calms down when my wife puts it on in the car, but he also like can't talk. So there'll be a point where he starts swearing that I tell her to stop putting this on.
My oldest, when I edit these podcasts, my oldest laughs whenever I say shit or fuck, and I'm just like, just remember, buddy, you can't say this at school. But he's like such a good kid. I know he's not going to. My youngest, on the other hand, I think he's going to say it whenever he wants. So I don't know. Bad parenting 101, I guess. But so let me wrap up my thoughts on the chase and the hunting of Sarah and Kyle. But I thought that end scene where he's throwing the plastique at him, and I just thought it was so cool because like, oh my god, one of these could just take him out, and it just doesn't. Like he just moves out of the way at the last second, and then he shoots Kyle, and then Sarah crashes the truck, and it was like they are fucked. But then
How did none of the shrapnel from the pipe bombs or the bullets hit the fucking tires on the car?
I don't know, man. I don't know how that would have been shrapnel. That was like a hard metal pipe. So I don't know if like
Filled with plastic explosives.
yeah, yeah, but it would be the shrapnel from the metal pipe. And so I
Yeah,
thought it
but
was
the
just
shrapnel from the metal pipe could easily penetrate a tire.
no, it could. I just don't think that the shrapnel would have happened because it was such a heavy duty pipe. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. But so yeah, like as the Terminator is ready to just plow into them. Or no. I'm sorry. He gets run over, and then they all get run over. But when he gets run over by the truck, and then he says that line, "Get out," and then he just steals their truck and just beelines right towards them. I was like, "Holy shit, this is never gonna end." And they get to the factory after they blow him up, and there's like, "Oh my god, more of a chase." I was all about it. I love the fact that there was really just like just nonstop pressure from the Terminator. And I was bummed when Reese died. I thought, like, man, that's some pretty piss poor protecting because you probably should have stayed alive to protect her. But hey, but then Sarah becomes a badass and she executes the
It was
Terminator.
all about her getting injured, right? You got to go back to that. Now, I'm going to rewind because there was shrapnel in Sarah after the pipe bomb blew up next to the truck and did the flippy spinnies in the air. And
Not after the truck. That was after Reese
after
blew
the
up the
Terminator
Terminator.
blew up, right?
Yeah,
So we're to assume that it's part of the Terminator that's in her abdomen.
that it was her leg, and I thought it was from the Terminator.
Okay, so it's the second time she was penetrated by the future that day.
Oh, nice, nice. Uh, but yeah, you're right, 100%.
In my notes, I had two things from the future inside of her. So I thought that joke was better than what I had written down.
They're all good. I mean, let them fly. I'm 100% fine with it.
But yeah, this is the part of the movie where for me in the chase, it really got Michael Myersy. Like, look, I'm walking through the fire. Look, I'm sitting up after you blew me up. Look, I'm chasing you. And this is the part of the chase that pissed me off the most. There is no chance that Terminator doesn't know what kind of machine that is. He has encyclopedic knowledge of everything. He has the internet in his little fucking chippy head. Dude,
Yeah.
and how you gonna reach for here? You got the metal hand, dude. Just crush a skull. So much skull crushing at the beginning of this movie with Johnny 5 Ed 209 Terminator, but he couldn't figure that out for Sarah.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because Terminators, when they talk about how they're the most efficient killing machines, not really efficient killing machines
Not
at
at all.
So one of the things is like, and this really gets into the later movies of like they do not go for the one shot kill. They decide to throw someone across the room or push them or throw them really hard somewhere, and it just doesn't. I don't get it, man.
How does in all of that machinery and stuff, like there's not just like a little thing that could fire out of their wrist or something? Like I know you didn't have a lot of toys growing up, but there were a ton of toys that did that in like the 50s. Shit that came out of stuff like a rocket firing Boba Fett. Like nothing. Not even like a little boop finger. Nothing. Anything. Just nope. This is just a machine. We can make no. It has to use other weapons, not these.
I mean, they fixed that in the other Terminators.
No, they didn't. He couldn't. The T-1000 couldn't make any projectiles.
It made stabbing weapons and
It
knives.
could only make
and
blunt things and stabbing weapons. Yeah.
And then the TX, they had that as well too. And the Terminator Dark Fate, that Terminator also had weapons built in as well. So I mean, yeah, they did. But yeah. So I mean, in the first one, I think like it's just more realistic that they don't have that shit, right? Like otherwise, it's gonna be like, all right, game over, like right off the bat. You know, you're fucked. You know, like ejecto cedo cuz or like rocket arm gets Sarah Connor fisted right there in Tech Noir.
Oh, two penetration jokes in one episode. I like it. They were in Tech Noir.
So what would I'm kind of curious, what would you have done if the like legit not like shitting on the movie, what would you have done if the Terminator was chasing you?
I don't know how. In living in the Los Angeles area, right? There are at least in the California area, in the LA area, there are multiple army bases. Camp Pendleton in Carlsbad. Like, come on.
They're just gonna let you on an army base?
No, but you drive to the army base, let them take you. Hey, I'm wanted. Take me inside the army base, please. And let the fucking Terminator try to attack the army base.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, so you would run. you wouldn't try to make like a last stand or like a trap to like, oh, we need to get this fucker, like a
I'm
cement
not
truck or some
qualified
shit.
to have a last stand. Neither in this movie is Sarah Connor.
But I would rather set up a trap somehow. I
You
would
don't go to
rather make a stand.
my stand would have been behind the brave men and women of the of Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base. Let's go.
I think,
Hoorah!
if, and this is assuming, so like just assuming that you could get into an army base, this would be my movie logic of like, I would just assume that I could get to a construction site where fresh concrete is being poured. That's how I would, you know, end up trying to get the Terminator into concrete and just fucking pouring
Well,
concrete on him.
we've already saw how to kill him in Terminator 2. You go to a smelting plant. You go to Pittsburgh. That's where you
Yeah.
go. Or
Is it,
Gary.
well, I mean, they were still in LA, but with yeah. But that's what I would do. I would make my stand. Or if I were to just flat out run from him, there's no way that they can fucking find you if you're just on a cross country road trip. No fucking way. Too many towns, too many different places for a Terminator to go to. There's no possible way that they would be able to find you.
I don't disagree, but you know, when you stop for deflowering of your projector, that's what happens. When you tell mom where you're at, and then you take some time and have some really weird handholdy sex, then the Terminator gets you.
Assuming that you can hold off, an ideal place to go would be Disney, because no way Terminator's getting into Disney. Those workers will tackle him and just flat out not let him pass those Mickey Mouse gates.
See, but the things that you don't know is he'll be able to turn all the other audio animatronics against you, and you'll end up getting killed by Mr. Lincoln.
That would be the worst. That was always my worst nightmare, getting killed by Abe Lincoln. Oh man.
4 and 7 years ago, you're dead.
Oh, all right. So let's wrap this up. So final impressions about the Terminator, Mark.
I was disappointed at all of the hype behind it because I don't think it holds up nearly as well as Terminator 2, which I'm sure we'll talk about on a later podcast because that's what we do.
So I think, my final impressions is it's still a solid movie. For all the things that you didn't like about it, that's what I liked about that movie is the music, the pacing. I liked it all. Do I think it's the best movie out of all the Terminators? No. I prefer, a little bit of humor and a lot more action. If I was more of like a horror thriller type of fan, then yeah, I would probably pick this movie over all of them. But I would still say it's solid. Do I think that it deserves a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes? Probably not. I think that's just a little bit of nostalgia and ass kissing for the genre bending of 1984. But yeah, I will stand by it. I'm a Terminator fan, and I'll watch all of them, every single one of them, including the ones that came after. So
I went and saw Dark Fate in the theaters. I am a huge Terminator fan, though some of the higher numbered Terminators were a little shoddy. I loved Dark Fate. I'm all in on the Sarah Connor character in general. I just expected more from this movie that it didn't give me.
fair enough. Fair enough. Well, you know what, Mark? Because I picked this one out, you get a chance to pick another movie for us. So we'll save that for next episode. But until next time, everyone, thank you very much for listening. I'm Dan. That's Mark.
Like and subscribe. Vote on our Twitter poll if it's still up, so I can beat Dan all day. At whatever we have you deciding on. Maybe it'll be if you liked or disliked Terminator after you rewatched it. Yes, I mean after. Prove you rewatched it too, by the way. Pictures of the end credit scene would be great. Because there's a lot of pictures in the end credit scene. which I was a fan of because they tied it together well.
But that's it for us right now. We will see you next time.
We can do this all day, I guess, or all night.
You know
There's
what?
a lot of bad 80s movies for us to watch.
After all these episodes, I still can't come up with a good ending. But we'll see you next time,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. There you go.